So anyway, we're glad to be here. We're excited to have a good conversation. Just for clarity, I'm the president of the IAB, not the CEO. Randall Rothenberg is the CEO, but it's all good. And I joined the IAB about 2 months ago. Most of my career was spent on the agency side, and then decided to see what it's like to work for a trade organization. And it's been awesome so far. So I think it would be great for each one of the panelists to just do a quick 2-minute kind of introduction on who they are and what they do, and then we can start with some questions. So Gary, why don't you start?
Sure. Hey, hi everybody. It's been a great conference. Just really enjoying it. Just want to make one note that during this stay at home, I cut my own hair.
Me too.
Just wanted to show you how I did. Saved $80. Anyhow. I'm Gary Delfiner, been around this space for quite a while, like about 11 years, and started out back in the day when there were only about 4 or 5 of us, including my dear friend Vikrant, who you'll hear from in a second. Created a thing called Popcorn Flicks back in the day, and about 5 years ago started my own company, which I publish my own owned and operated channels. And my main channel is called WatchFreeFlix. It's an AVOD channel. It's pretty popular. It's on Roku, it's on Amazon Fire TV, and soon to be a few other major platforms. And that's me.
Sweet, awesome. Catherine, you're next in my field of view. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, I'm Catherine Dale. I'm the Regional Vice President over at SpotX. SpotX is a video ad monetization platform. We can also do ad serving. So it's actually a tech vendor, a tech partner on both the buy and the sell side for a lot of folks. So we have a pretty, I would say, unique position on what's going on in the market at large. Particularly, my group focuses on media owner relationships. So that's both a majority existing and also new business. And some of our clients are here on the panel with me today.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. Vikrant?
Oh, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry.
Perfect.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Vikrant Mathur. I'm the co-founder of Future Today. And unlike Gary, I have not had a haircut in 3 months, so I'm having a tough time keeping it together. So bear with me. Future Today is an OTT publishing platform. We started in the OTT space about 10 years ago, as Gary alluded. We were, I think, the 4th or the 5th app on our channel on the Roku platform, and have grown with the platform and with the industry ever since. What we do is we work with content partners and help them distribute their content on OTT platforms such as Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, a number of smart TVs. Recently, we launched on Comcast, so expanding into the MVPD space as well. And in addition to working with third parties and providing the technology on the platform and helping them manage their offerings, we also have our owned and operated channels that we manage on all of these different platforms.
Fantastic. And then bringing up the rear, last but not least, Adam?
Yeah, thank you, David, and great to be here with everyone. Adam Bergman, I'm the Vice President of Ad Sales for VIZIO. VIZIO is America's #1 television. I look after the ad sales team for the last 8 months. Some colleagues and I have been responsible for the go-to-market narrative. Everyone knows VIZIO as a television manufacturer. Everyone has known us as a content distributor. Few in the media and advertising business has known us as a vendor. So I've been responsible with a few other team members for building out the story of how VIZIO comes to market as an ad solution. For us, that means owned and operated connected television inventory, both video and high impact display inside of our user experience. We're also the owners of one of the largest television data sets in market. We collect real-time ACR data on all of our televisions. So we've come to market with a really powerful narrative, and I think for the AVOD community in particular, probably a sleeping giant of sorts in terms of distribution. When we built this business 7-8 months ago, we had about 18 ad-supported apps on the platform. Today, we have close to 80. apps and channels in the platform. So growing at an exponential rate. And so I'm excited to be here to join the conversation. And I'm glad to see that Gary and I either had the foolishness or confidence to keep our natural backgrounds up versus the virtual Zoom. We'll see if that hurts me in the long run.
It looks just fine. I think so thank you all for introducing yourself. At the very least, we are the best looking panel, I think, of the day. So we have that going for ourselves. So we're going to have a conversation around strategies for ad-supported VOD. And the way we're going to start that is just looking over the past, let's say, 2 months. Obviously, the world has changed significantly. Media habits have changed significantly. I'll open this up to anyone that wants to answer. How have you seen kind of media habits changed over the kind of pandemic? And do you think that those will be kind of fleeting, or do you think that those will be kind of lasting? Who wants to give that a crack? Catherine, you're muted.
I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I can give that one a crack. Across all of our media owners, we recently at SpotX did a survey, and it was actually 78% of them that had seen a massive uptick, as we all know, in viewership. And we've been working with all of them in terms of what that means for Q2 and how they're going to change their strategies. But we absolutely have seen a movement of eyeballs, especially with regard to acquisition of new users, like new users who are downloading and accessing different apps on their connected television that they hadn't been before. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how the trends move. We are hopeful that the habits will remain.
Yeah, I can offer sort of a follow-up there as a platform owner. You know, we have holistic insight on all VIZIO televisions, to linear viewership, to SVOD, to AVOD. I have a little cheat sheet here, some stats. So 34% increase in all app usage. That's TVOD, AVOD, SVOD. If we look at minutes per user in the OTT space, up 53%. If you look at app usage in particular, AVOD app usage, up 74%. So the largest growth area for us has very particularly been in AVOD. I think if you talk about sort of the staying power of that, I think if you zoom out, you know, you can't get through a panel like this without talking about the streaming wars, right? And as we continue to see another few huge entrants into the marketplace, if the idea 3-4 years ago is that cord cutting was a cost savings exercise, I don't think that's the reality anymore, right? You start piling up all these SVOD subscriptions, and I think you're looking at a customer base that is more intent on finding quality, premium content for free. And I think the obvious trade-off there is ads. So we're seeing a huge, huge increase in ad-supported content. Maybe not the same spike, but we expect it to stay throughout the course of the year, and I think this is the new normal.
I'm going to address the longevity issue of that.
Okay.
And agree with what everybody's saying. We've obviously, as an unintended consequence, have seen an uptick. And yeah, it's around the numbers that Adam has just said. I think it's permanent. I think that this is, I mean, again, unintended consequence, but now that the viewer has found our channels, and I see the viewership is staying. It's not just coming one day and leaving the next. It's staying. Not to mention that all of the platforms, whether it be Roku adding another 5 or 6 million, viewers, that trickles down to all of our different apps. I think that this is, that there's staying power in this, and that we're going to see, now that they've discovered us, and I always say free is a good price, they're staying. At least that's what it looks like, from my point of view and my experience.
Yeah, and not to disagree with you. I think that, the phrase that keeps on going around is that, we've been seeing kind of a fairly significant migration over the past, let's say, 3 years to kind of streaming platforms, OTT, connected television. And people are saying that this pandemic is just going to simply accelerate the changes that we've seen already. And I think that there's some validity to that. The only push I would give is in today's day and age, if you look at kind of linear television, top 10 shows, 9 out of those 10 will be live sports. And we don't have live sports today. So while I don't disagree with you necessarily, I do think that sports will change the dynamic slightly, and I just wonder if anyone has any reaction to that. Does your cheat sheet, Adam, have anything on sports that you want to share?
Funny you should ask, David. Now, before I go to the cheat sheet, what I will say is I couldn't agree with you more. Look, there's a thread here that is a separate panel, and it's weeks worth of discussion, but about the upfronts, right? And what the look and feel of the upfronts are now. I agree completely that live sports will remain a moment in time that is irreplaceable, and you don't want to miss it. Everything else is on the table. I agree with Gary. There is staying power here. We leverage our ACR data across our footprint of televisions, 15 million opted-in households. We looked at binge data from last week. Number one, NCIS Los Angeles, big week. Number two is The Last Dance, right? Now, The Last Dance is a masterpiece personally, as a diehard Jordan fan, but also I think it shows the appetite that people have for sports and sports-related content. Or perhaps people just want to venture if Michael Jordan could have existed in a world with iPhones and social media. I don't think so. But that's number two, right? So there's a massive yearning and appetite for that content, and it's not going to go. That desire doesn't go away.
Yep. So before we move off this topic, Vikrant, anything to add to this? We can.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say as kind of a microcosm of a platform, we operate over 700 channels across all of these devices and platforms. We see similar trends, right? So we see, 30 to 40% increase in usage and consumption. Kids and families a big category for us, and we're seeing a bigger increase there compared to movies and television and our lifestyle, which are the other two categories for us. But again, I would echo the point that, this is not just a result of the pandemic, right? So if we look at our numbers, our year-over-year usage is up about 125%. New users are up 100%, right? So the pandemic, to your point, David, has accelerated the process, right, and added fuel to the fire. But this process started 10 years ago. I mean, I remember when we launched the first app on Roku and Boxy and Yahoo Connected Television, if anybody remembers those devices. We would be happy to just get 1,000 unique users a day, right? And now we're doing hundreds of millions of ad requests and views, and the numbers keep growing every year. And so the pandemic has just, to your point, accelerated the thing, but that's been going on every single year, and we have 10 years of data where except for a couple of months here and there, we've grown every single year. 80, 90, 100%.
I just want to add one thing to that the pandemic really increased discoverability. And I think that what's happened is that viewers, because they have the time at home, will take a look at a channel like WatchFreeFlix or, Happy Kids TV or, whatever. And it just, they're hungry to see what else is out there. And they're particularly hungry to see what else is out there that's free. Yeah. And I think that has been discoverability. It's forced discoverability and curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and David, you talked about sports. I think another kind of phenomena that's playing into it is, the studios are shut down. So there's nothing new on television. The production's not happening, right? So I think that's another factor which is kind of playing into this, where if I want to go watch stuff on television, it's just reruns. And except for a few shows here and there. So VOD in general and streaming in general is providing an outlet to people who otherwise not have the time to test it and try it, but then are also in some ways being forced to migrate over because there's really there aren't any options on linear right now.
Yep. So let's talk about the kind of the corollary to this. So there's no doubt that usage is through the roof. I think that the question then becomes about monetization, about ad support, and I think I'm not going out on a limb to say that there's some economic uncertainty out there. So the volume of growth is not necessarily being fully monetized. Let's talk about some of the things that we're hearing from the buy side, from advertisers, marketers, agencies. From what we hear at the IAB, the new word is flexibility. Flexibility is the new black. Everyone wants the ability to get in, get out, optimize, change creative, cancel, shift, Let's talk a little bit about the kinds of things that we're hearing from buyers, agencies, and marketers. What are they asking for now that they weren't asking for 3 months ago?
Well, David, isn't that an exact, by the way, Kat, go for it, but just, isn't that the upfront conversation again, right? You're now locked in with no place to go to an extent. That becomes a huge challenge. Go ahead, take the mic. Catherine, all yours.
Oh yeah, certainly. I was just going to say, I think that we are seeing from the buy side that ask for flexibility in a bunch of different areas, but I can attest over the past, let's say 6 weeks, that we are seeing revenue flow to those media owners that are being flexible. And it's not just necessarily flexible with, of course, the obvious, which is pricing. Again, I would recommend that only for flexibility limited to Q2, but also things like ad duration. I mean, pharma is one that we talk about where it has to be a 60-second versus 30-second creative. There's spend there, and I think more and more media owners are willing to go there. Another area is not just specific advertisers or duration length, but let's say within the programmatic world to say, hey, I'm only deals based, but now I'll look to, let's say, the open marketplace for additional spend.
I think that another piece of this is that, at least what I'm seeing, and you're seeing it on broadcast television as well, that the advertisers are transforming slowly but steadily their ads to accommodate the stay-at-home audience. The car companies jumped in right away. I mean, Cadillac and GMC jumped in immediately. We're all in. You know, our shops are open, and we'll bring your car to your door. I mean, even Celino and Barnes is still advertising. I mean, I thought they'd be gone by now, although we love them because they spend a lot of money. Not to forget that in a couple of weeks to a couple of months, the political spending will start. And that is going to add a significant bump for all of us.
Yeah, it seems just like a myriad of those factors. Gary, I think you're spot on. You know, it's interesting. There are so many brands. David, I think the IAB put out a really interesting white paper specifically around the shift in messaging. And you're seeing all these brands lean in and say, I'm going to move to mission-based marketing. That's a luxury, right? Frankly, that is a luxury for a big brand with lots of money to maintain spend and build new creative. Talk about the D2C community. You talk about regional advertisers where every penny they spend counts. I think those are the advertisers who are struggling to find their footing right now. I think they all see streaming as the opportunity. I think our resounding message here is that this is an acceleration of a trend that was already in place. I think what really unlocks that next phase, and this is not a short-term answer, but how brands can transact in a dynamic way across media, across linear addressable, and across streaming. That's the future, right? Truly creating dynamics between each one of those buying patterns. There are so many implications. There's currency implications in how you transact. There's measurement, and not just post-campaign measurement. There's still a single monolith in linear that frankly I don't think there will never be a singular monolith like Nielsen again across measurement platforms. It just won't be the case, frankly. So I think buyers are using this as a chance to say, look, my dollars may be limited, but how do I use this to accelerate what I think we already instinctually know? I think the agency community is where I'm getting sort of back and forth feedback. You have those that have been praying for the death of the upfront cycle for a long time. You have those that say, well, I make my business off the upfront. They're both valid positions. So I think how the upfront translates or how it reshapes will be a real driver of what we see in the years going forward.
And
to your point, David, sorry, just to add, I think you hit the nail on its head. It's, the word flexible, right? And I think the good news for all of us kind of being in the OTT space is a lot of the television dollars are being migrated over because OTT inherently is so much more flexible compared to the television buying and selling process, right? And so that's really, and I feel that's why I think even though we're all suffering right now, I think just the conversations that we're having with folks, there's a lot of optimism around, Q3 and Q4 and how the spend could come back. And specifically with respect to OTT, because it is so much more flexible when you're buying on OTT, whether it be direct or whether it be through a programmatic buy. It's so much more flexible compared to the traditional television buying process.
And just to add to that real quickly, Christmas is still going to be Christmas. In fact, Christmas holiday, Hanukkah, Christmas is going to be more important this year than ever. And so you're going to look to see all of the online companies, whether it's Gap or whether it's, anybody who's still going to be in business. So I'm leaving Nordstrom's out of that for a moment, but because they just announced they got some problems. But at the end of the day, I agree with Vikrant. There's going to be a surge in fourth quarter at the least, and it may start in third, because there's going to be a bigger push, I believe, for those companies to put their products out who are in the online business, because Christmas is going to be bigger than ever for obvious reasons.
Totally agree. I want to do a quick commercial for something that we have just kicked off at the IAB, which we announced on Friday, which really speaks, Adam, to what you were just talking about. So the disparity between linear television and the streaming world is obvious. They're measured differently, counted differently, currency is different, KPIs are different, and yet we sometimes try to just smash them together and talk about an omni-channel buy, which is not simple. So we are kicking off an initiative called Television, which is going to look at things as boring and as dull as terms and conditions. So in the digital space, we have terms and conditions, which is a very, very long document, legalese. In television, there is no terms and conditions. It's basically a handshake and a relationship, and there has to be some happy medium in between. We're going to talk about measurement. We're going to talk about attribution. We're going to talk about the timing of the marketplace. All the things that we've been talking and lamenting over for years are things that we need to bring to the fore if we're going to get to that fluidity of dollars from the $70 billion marketplace to the, let's say, 1/10 of that, which is the world that we're talking about here. So that's super exciting. I want to talk slightly about kind of the myth versus reality, fact versus fiction. We're in a world, a business that has lots of hype and lots of talk and not a lot of sometimes action. I want to talk about targeting. I want to talk about a lot of the things that we're talking about. I think about television with benefits, right? I think about the ability to go beyond Nielsen age sex. I can use a first-party data source. I can come up with a custom audience. I could measure. I could put it in market. How many people are doing that? Are people actually using first-party data to create custom targets, or are people defaulting to Nielsen DAR for measurement? I open it to the floor.
I would say both first and third party data is being used. And when Adam was just speaking, I was thinking, how do those small and medium business advertisers make their ad spend work harder? And it's through data targeting. And yeah, it depends on the media owner. I think a lot of the larger media owners will have their own first party data. They're able to port that through a DMP. But other smaller guys are also really benefiting from this, just utilizing third party data across their supply side or their vendor platforms.
Yeah, I mean, there's too much inventory, frankly, and without a massive budget, you don't get to move the needle, right? I mean, look, there's two differing opinions, not one wrong or right, on reach frequency. I'm either looking for mass awareness, low frequency, high reach, or I'm going the opposite. I know that my brand message needs multiple exposures to resonate. Two very different strategies, not wrong or right, different for different business situations. The reality is the ability to achieve that across our ecosystem can be very, very challenging. Catherine is likely the expert here in the waterfall, right? You have device owners, you have publishers, you have mediators, you have traditional media companies with owned OTT properties, you have independent app developers. I think the misnomer, or rather the challenge, I think, for buyers in navigating is, how do I know that the inventory I'm buying is what I'm buying? And I think that's always been the stifle in a mass percentage of the $70 billion a year from television moving over, is that in television, I know the spot, the pod, the show. Done. Full stop.
I'm going to add one word to that: consistency.
Sure, absolutely.
And I think at the end of the day, given that as a publisher, we really don't get access to a lot of that data, because you guys, pick it up through, through your end, through your serving. But here's the thing: the more consistent your channel is, the more it continues to deliver the same kind of viewer, or the same demo viewer. If they're used to, buying, my channel because they love 18 to 34 males, that's a focus that I happen to have in a big way. And they know that. So consistently they're coming back and coming back. Doesn't mean I don't have a lot of women voters, women viewers. And I have a huge foreign film collection. I have a big romance collection. I have a big urban collection. But I'm consistent in my strategy in all of those, different verticals. And I think that really comes into the mix of the advertisers who I deal with.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. They got to know what they're getting.
They come to me because they know what they're going to get. What you see is what they're going to get.
Yep. I will just quickly answer, David. My perspective, the answer absolutely is yes, with a resounding yes, that audience-based buying continues to shift further into the lead. This is a total, social poll. I would say that in this calendar year, 20% of the advertising community that I am in touch with, or that my team is in touch with, is buying OTT based on Nielsen DAR. 20%. There are huge dollars behind those advertisers, but 20%. That number could be argued. Everybody else is going to have their own version, but I think it's important, but I don't know that will continue to be the path in the future.
Let's talk about some of the challenges, because I think it's a nice segue. So in the world of media planning, you look at things that are kind of apples to apples. And for better or for worse, we had reach, we had frequency, we had Nielsen that was measuring, and everything was whether it was good or bad, it was consistent. And you could take money from one place and you could move it somewhere else. You know how many rating points you're giving up and all that kind of fun stuff. And still, reach and frequency is a big part of the media planning game today. So I want to talk about some of the challenges that we face as the world moves from linear to ad-supported VOD and all its permutations. Price is one, I think. So it's also price, the perception of price. If you have a cable television buy that's at an $8 to $10 CPM, and you have a AVOD buy or a CTV buy that's $28 or $30, it appears that you're not doing quite well, and you don't want to do that because then you're delivering less rating points for the same dollars. What are some other challenges that you think we face as an industry to move more money out of linear to these other channels?
Well, maybe on the consumer side, I'll add that there's a lot of work that needs to be done improving the user experience, I think, which obviously affects how a brand is perceived in the marketplace and in the eye of the consumer. So things like deduplication as an example, right, where you have a pod where you see 4 ads play back to back. That's so frustrating I'm sure for all of us as consumers, but for some reason you still see that happening, and you see that happening on big premium apps that have massive scale, and so there's things like that where I think from a technical perspective, I think perhaps for the lack of a standard, these things are happening. But I think there needs to be work done, and perhaps IAB can help out with that, taking a leadership position, defining the framework and the guidelines. But there's things like frequency capping. There's things like the volume at which, or the audio volume at which an advertisement plays, right? There's no standardization today. So you could have a situation where in an ad pod of 5 ads, each ad is playing at a different volume. And then the TV show that you're playing is at a different volume, right? So these are just some examples, but I think from a consumer's perspective, I think these things go a long way, which eventually affect how quickly these dollars can flow in from television to OTT.
And I can speak to that from a technical perspective. Oh, sorry, David, did you want to speak there?
No, go ahead, go for it.
Yeah, just speaking to some of those challenges from a technical perspective and the way we are trying to solve for some of them. I would say we were talking before about knowing exactly what you're getting. So content metadata being passed in the bid request. So knowing things like show title, AMC is a big client for us at SpotX, and you can know exactly what you're getting. So it solves for that concern. You want The Walking Dead, you don't have to know, okay, it's on Friday nights at 8 p.m. Whenever someone may be watching it on a connected TV, the buyer can still get that reporting that they know what they're getting. The other issue, and I totally agree as an end user, is the viewership experience where there can be a duplication of ads. I think the answer to that, and I don't want to be guilty of using a terrible buzzword there because I know it's not the true header, but is the concept of header bidding for connected television, and how having one tech partner see the entire audience, you can do things like frequency capping, deduplication, and I think that's all going to become a little bit more, to your point, Vikrant, mainstream and standardized in the next 6 months to a year.
Yeah, we are, by the way, Vikrant, working at the IAB and the Tech Lab in lots of areas around OTT and connected television, whether it's fraud, whether it's viewability, whether it's standards, whether it's cross-screen optimization. So we are definitely on the case. I want to ask one last question, and then we're going to end with something fun. I find it fun, hopefully you do too, which I call a lightning round. So my last question, just in one sentence, give me something that you are excited to look forward to the back half of this year. What are you excited to see happen in this industry back half of this year? We'll start with Gary.
This is an easy question, an easy answer for me. I decided as soon as this whole, terrible virus started, and we saw that we are fortunately in a business providing a service, we're making a good living, we're not going out of business. For me, I'm committed to giving back, and the way that I'm going to do this, and I hope everybody else will do this, maybe we can do this together, is I'm actively right now looking for charities nationally, locally, that I can get involved with, where I can bring them awareness, help them raise money. Because look, all of us are serving, we're serving plenty of ads, mainly because of the uptick in the, in the viewership. But at the same time, we have plenty of inventory left over, which could go to incredibly great use. And that is something that I am excited about. I'm working on it, and I hope and implore everybody else in our industry to do the same. And I'm open to working with other publishers to throw our hats in the ring. Vikrant and I are working together because he happens to be my tech partner in the business, so it's easy. But at the end of the day, it's something necessary, and for me, it's something I'm compelled to do.
Awesome. Catherine, quick one. What are you excited about?
Mine's a little bit more tech focused, so sorry for that. But I would say I'm really, really excited to see the growth of programmatic guaranteed. So this is a deals type of execution. We talk about flexibility, but we also talk about wanting OTT transacted programmatically to be something that we can forecast. I think the market is ripe for this. I mean, it's been the year of programmatic guaranteed for like just like it was the year of mobile for quite some time. But I really do think it's the right time for the intersection of all of this audience data, all this data to transact programmatically in a guaranteed way.
Awesome. Vikrant?
Yeah, I'd say I'd take a bird's eye view to this. I would say, we've been doing this for about 10 years now, started with OTT in 2010. And when we started, we knew we were kind of ahead of the game. We thought maybe we were 3 or 4 years ahead of the curve. So we thought, 2014 is going to be the year of streaming, and then it became 2015, and then 2016, and then 2017. But I've been in kind of this state of euphoria for about a year now, where I think it's finally coming together. And this pandemic, as horrible as it is, has kind of expedited that process, like we discussed. And so I'm just in general very, very excited and optimistic about the state of our industry and where it's going and the future for all of us.
Awesome. From your lips to God's ears. Love that. Adam?
I'll stick with industry innovation. I'm really excited about linear addressability. I'm biased in that position. VIZIO is a founding member of a group called Project OR. Project OR is an industry consortium where we're working with television networks and distribution partners and ad serving partners to build an industry-wide spec for addressable television to be used by manufacturers and publishers alike, single watermarks. We talk about this acceleration of cross-platform viewership. The only way the media community can follow is if they can easily transact, easily manage reach frequency across screens, and do it in real time, not just in an analytics report 6 months after the fact. So I'm really excited about all that's to come from there and VIZIO's partnerships with the television networks.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to end last minute with this lightning round. No, I'm going to go down the line, my line. So it's Gary, Catherine, Vikrant, Adam. And then we're going to start back with Gary. I'm going to say one word, and I want you to quickly say the first word that comes to your mind. Okay? Some people do this better than others. Hopefully this is going to be a good exercise. Ready, Gary? We're starting with you. Gary, Catherine, Vikrant, Adam. Netflix. First thing that comes to mind.
Bruce Springsteen.
Catherine?
Leader.
Vikrant? Adam?
Downward trend.
Addressability.
The future.
No, we're going to start, every time we start with Gary, Catherine, Vikrant, Adam. Gary, Catherine, so I'm not going to say the names. Gary, Catherine, Vikrant, Adam, right? Addressability, Gary.
Necessary.
The future.
Near future, I would say.
Yeah.
Problem solving.
Dynamic ad insertion.
The only way to go ever.
Necessary for good user experience for long form content.
I don't really understand it.
A must.
Attribution.
What does that word mean?
Catherine?
Powerful.
Holy
Vikrant?
grail.
Okay, Adam?
According to who?
Zoom meetings. Gary?
The future, even beyond this. They're fabulous.
Good fun.
Lifesaver.
Adam?
Latency.
Set-top box data. Gary?
More set-top box, the better.
Catherine?
Interesting.
Vikrant?
I never saw it, so I don't care.
Okay, Adam?
Big but messy.
Last one, CES. Gary?
Online.
I miss it.
2026.
Boondoggle.
All right, that was reasonably good. Thank you very much. Thank you for humoring me. That was great. And thank you for your time. That was an awesome conversation. I think that we're out of time. If that's, Eric, thank you.